You know goblins, the little gremlin monsters, the things you hunt in RPGs and the start of D&D? Yeah, those goblins. Now what if instead of hunting them down, we follow them? We got to see their lives, their struggles, we got to see them as the main characters. Crazy, right? Goblins! The little monsters that I'm very used to slaying in... I don't know. Do Goblins in Breath of the Wild counts? I'm gonna say they count. Anyways, they're the default in most fantasy situations. Don't know what the player should fight? I don't know, throw some goblins into the mix, that'll spice things up a little bit. This is a long-winded way of me saying that there are a lot of fantasy monsters. Goblins are the cannon fodder that have weirdly gotten back into the limelight, rather being playable in games like D&D, or due to some... let's say enthusiastic artists on Twitter, or even due to some fantasy games like the sponsor of today, Raid Shadow Legends. You're on this video, which means you've gotta be a big fan of fantasy and action. And lucky you, Raid Shadow Legends has exactly what you want. High action, high fantasy, and high fun. With over 80 million players already, so you know there's gotta be something to this game. Raid is a hero collecting turn-based game with over 650 champions to collect. In Raid, you can get knights, mages, the undead, and while technically not a goblin, these massive orcs are close enough. So far, I've really fallen in love with the characters. My three favorite champions are Kal-El, a great starting option with multi-hit attacks that are invaluable to my team. Same thing with the Soulbound Boyar, which, besides having one of the coolest names in the game, is also incredible at dealing with both group enemies and bosses. And while not as strong as the other two, Diabloist is super useful to increasing my team's already slow speed, getting them to attack more often. And Raid still has more features, as this month included new dungeons, the Artifact of Ascension, and a new legendary champion based on the pro wrestler Ronda Rousey. Wait, really? You can get Ronda for free right now, whether you're a new or long-term player, just by logging into Raid for 7 days between now and February 20th, and to help you level up, enter the special promo code RAIDRONDA to get a bunch of helpful stuff like a 3-day 100% EXP boost, 500k silver, and 5 energy refills. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get exclusive rewards in Raid right now. So if you haven't started playing Raid yet, click my link in the description or scan my QR code right here on the screen. You'll get a bunch of unique bonuses worth $30. We're talking a free epic champion, Vergis, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, and 1 EXP boost, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon a rare champion as soon as you get in game. Look, if you like turn-based strategy games with super cool champions, give Raid a try. It's free, and there's truly nothing to lose. Anyways, whatever the reason, goblins are getting some attention, and no series represents this more than Just a Goblin. Just a Goblin follows exactly what you think. A series just about a goblin. Well, mainly about goblins, the lives they live, and the two goblins that are trying to stand out and do something about it. We follow Nog and Gubble. Unlike most goblins, Nog uses his noggin. Oh, I get it. Nog, like, not very clever. Anyways, Nog is a gifted young goblin, a self-proclaimed inventor. Instead of focusing on brute strength and power like many other goblins that focus on outnumbering and overwhelming their opponents, Nog looks at the big picture, focusing more on strategies and traps, creating new inventions that can help his life and the life of goblins he lives with. Anyways, following the life of goblins shows... well, it shows how tough the life of a goblin can be, as goblins are hunted down by adventurers constantly for some unknown reason. As for years, even longer perhaps, adventurers have raided the forest that goblins live in, targeting every living thing they see in the forest, especially the goblins. Not the strongest monster out there, but with enough numbers to be a threat. But interestingly enough, as adventurers hunt down these little green dudes, they take their linen, their teeth, and weirdly, their ears? We hear some adventurers talking about it like a daily quest, and we see other adventurers just straight up wearing goblin ears around their neck, like the weirdest display of, I don't know, power, strength, whatever the reason being, goblins are hunted down, and it barely seems like either party understands why. The adventurers haven't really given a clear answer as to why, and the goblins definitely don't understand why, and most aren't smart or strong enough to figure it out. So they keep on throwing more and more goblins into the fire and hopefully fight back. But it's clear that it's not working. But Nog is built a little different. He's weaker than most other goblins, the series is very clear about that, but he makes up for it with his wild inventions. From all manner of traps and pitfalls to a grappling hook that works. Well, it works sometimes. However, because Nog is so different, he's often overlooked and ignored. When Nog insists that there are other ways of dealing with adventurers, from stealth, evasion, or eventually trying to understand adventurers, he's laughed at by the Elder and insulted for thinking differently. But this doesn't stop Nog and his friend Gobble from trying, eventually capturing and questioning an adventurer, but while the questioning was happening, they accidentally cut the rope and drop him into a pit full of spikes and kill him. Whoops. But when one door closes, another door opens, as the adventurer system spirit thing leaves the adventurer's body and enters Nog. This system, Pip, inhabits Nog and makes him into a player, with access to skills, leveling up, and the magical system. That's weirdly always in these fantasy type series. No one is safe from the real threat, min-maxing. Anyways, the point is that Nog now has access to this magical system, access to skills and leveling up. He decides to find the answer to his question directly by becoming an adventurer, to figure out why adventurers are killing goblins so much, disguising themselves and infiltrating their ranks to see what the adventurers are up to. I am in love with the series so far. The art style is one of my favorites, period, but more importantly, it doesn't feel like a gimmicky thing. It's really just a high fantasy series that follows an underappreciated and overly murdered race. But while I'm a big fan of isekais, reverse isekais, whatever else I talk about on this channel, it's nice to have a series that focuses on one world. Because so far, I am in love with the dynamic that Nog has with the worlds and with adventurers. After saving some adventurers from some slimes and being mistaken for some gnomes, Nog and Gobble are taken to a human village where they see just how different the two lives live. Goblins live in these huts very connected to nature, and humans live how you'd expect a human to live in a fantasy world. And instead of receiving a reward for saving the adventurers, Nog wants to take a test to become an adventurer. And after a duel with the strongest member of the guild, both do become adventurers, the very thing they're trying to figure out. While writing this, they're not too far into the journey, but I'm already loving what Nog has been going through. Like I said, goblins are more often than not the first roadblock, the first obstacle or enemy. Series like The Lone Necromancer or Return to Player start with goblin-like threats. The idea is to simply show a different perspective, to show a viewpoint that is often overlooked. That being the enemy we so easily ignore and kill. Now, having a character being a fantasy race and pretend to be a different fantasy race or just human isn't exactly uncommon. It's basically the equivalent of in a rom-com when a girl pretends to be a dude. I think a good example of this is Suitor Armor, having our main character, a fairy, pretend to be a human and live in a human society that hates fairies. Series like these are usually a suspenseful and often dramatic series about having a main character try and change the minds of others, slowly winning over the other cast of characters onto our main character's side. And if you're lucky, you'll get something along the lines of, maybe we were wrong about insert fantasy race. And if you're lucky, there's a moment where like one of the main character's closest friends or love interests shows some disdain for said fantasy race, and you think their relationship might end, but then the closest friend / love interest comes back and defends our main character when something gets out. You know, I really like this plot. It's usually about keeping an open mind and questioning stereotypes. 10 out of 10. Would read again. Now, there's only 15 chapters so far, but something I really love in the most recent chapter is Nog himself and this beefy boy, Goliath, self-proclaimed best goblin hunter, wearing a necklace with goblin ears hanging from it. This moment shocks Nog, remembering why he's there in the first place to find answers. These two characters are polar opposites. Nog the goblin trying to figure out why adventurers are hunting down goblins, hunting down his own race, and Goliath, the self-proclaimed best goblin hunter, someone who's proud about how many goblins he kills. After this moments where they first meet, there's this anger in Nog, which, to be clear, is 100% acceptable, fair, and understandable. Like, these adventurers are killing his friends and his families for quests, for sports, for material, even just for fun. But there's this small change in Nog. There's this urgency in him, and there's this fear of not being strong enough to protect his friends. This causes Nog, the Goblin, to go hunting goblins with the beefy boy I mentioned before. Sure, he doesn't really hunt the goblins down. In fact, he stops the other adventurers from killing goblins. But it's these moments that are so compelling. Sure, Nog manages to stop goblin death, and even getting some info on the fact that goblin parts sell for a decent price, and some adventurers just find goblins disgusting. But what's way more interesting is one of the most recent chapters, where Nog manages to summon a giant monster of the forest to get him out of a sticky situation, and even to take down some adventurers. Adventurers that truly deserve to be taken out. They are a danger to his friends and family, even to Nog himself. These adventurers would 100% kill Nog if they ever found out he was a goblin. But right when one was about to die, Nog goes against everything and saves him. One of the main themes of series that this undercover fantasy race trope thing follows is the aspect of discrimination. Like I said, it's about keeping an open mind and questioning stereotypes. But what I like about Just a Goblin so far is that the series takes a look at the anger and the hatred that the goblins, specifically Nog, has against adventurers. This series isn't just about Nog trying to figure out and break through discrimination and the hatred that adventurers have for goblins, but also taking a close examination at the hatred goblins have for adventurers. But also the fact that Nog can overcome that hatred, finding people, adventurers, people who go out and kill his friends and family, and find people that he cares about. And because of that, he's willing to put his life on the line to save an adventure that was literally hunting down goblins just a couple of minutes beforehand. Series like this are all about breaking down walls, breaking down stereotypes, social judgments, breaking down discrimination with high fantasy and fun action, and honestly, I think that's pretty great. So make sure to check out Just a Goblin, updating every week on Webtoon.